planet Xenos 9 was a swirling orb of green and black, a jungle world notorious for its hostile environment. The dense foliage of its surface was shrouded in perpetual darkness, illuminated only by the eerie bioluminescent flora and the occasional streak of lightning from violent storms. It was a place where even the most hardened mercenaries hesitated to tread. But the human squad, known as the Echoes, wasn't like most mercenaries. Commander Sarah Kincaid, the leader of the Echoes, studied the data streaming across her visor as the dropship made its descent through the planet's thick atmosphere. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, and her green eyes were cold and focused. Her squad was the best in the galaxy, and this mission would be no different. They had been hired by the Galactic Council to track down and eliminate a group of known criminals hiding on Xenos 9. Noans were a bipedal reptilian species with muscular builds and thick green scales that offered natural armor. Known for their ruthlessness and cunning, they had established a fearsome reputation across multiple star systems. The group the Echoes were hunting was responsible for a series of high-profile assassinations, smuggling operations. "They picked the worst possible place to hide," muttered Sergeant Marcus Steele Reyes, Kincaid's second-in-command, as he checked the readings on his weapon. He was a broad-shouldered man with a shaved head and a permanent scowl. His nickname came from the unbreakable resolve he displayed in battle. "Or the best, depending on how you look at it," Kincaid replied, her voice calm and measured. "They know no one in their right mind would come after them here, which is exactly why we're going to." "Touchdown in 30 seconds, the pilot's voice crackled over the comms. The dropship shuddered as it hit turbulence, the hull creaking under the strain. The jungle below came into view, a sea of twisted trees and vines, with shadows moving within the depths. "Remember," Kincaid said, addressing her squad over the comms, "this isn't just about taking down a group of criminals. This is about sending a message. No one messes with humanity and gets away with it." The squad responded with a chorus of affirmatives. Each member was handpicked for this mission, each one an expert in their field. There was Corporal Juno Park, a sharpshooter with an eye so precise she could hit a target from miles away. Specialist Ethan Ghost Shaw, the tech wizard and stealth expert, was a master of infiltration and sabotage. Private First Class Ava Doc Ramirez, the squad's medic, could patch up wounds and keep a cool head under fire. The dropship landed with a heavy thud in a small clearing. The ramp lowered, and the squad moved out with military precision, weapons at the ready. The jungle greeted them with an oppressive silence, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder and the hum of alien insects. Kincaid activated her HUD, a digital map of the area materializing before her eyes. The Noans were somewhere deep within the jungle, hiding in a fortified bunker. The terrain was treacherous, with unknown predators and environmental hazards, but the Echoes were prepared for anything. "Form up," Kincaid ordered. "Ghost, you're on point. Let's move." The jungle swallowed them whole as they ventured deeper into its shadowy embrace. The air was thick with humidity, making every breath feel like a struggle. The underbrush was a tangled mess of roots and vines, forcing the squad to navigate with caution. But it wasn't just the terrain that made Xenos 9 dangerous. "Keep your eyes open," Reyes whispered, his voice barely audible. "This place is alive." As if on cue, something rustled in the bushes to their left. The squad froze, weapons trained on the source of the sound. A moment later, a creature the size of a dog with 6 legs and glowing red eyes darted out, only to be vaporized by Park's well-aimed shot. "Just a scout," Park said, lowering her rifle. "But where there's one, there's usually more." "Stay sharp," Kincaid warned. "These things are just the start. The Noans probably have traps laid out all over this place." They pressed on, every step a calculated risk. The jungle seemed to pulse with life, the bioluminescent plants casting an eerie glow. Strange sounds echoed around them, cries of unseen creatures that sent shivers down their spines. Yet the squad moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, their senses heightened to the max. After what felt like hours, they reached a steep ridge overlooking a deep ravine. Across the chasm, barely visible through the thick foliage, was their target, a camouflaged bunker built into the side of a cliff. "There it is," Kincaid said, pointing. "The Noans are holed up in there." Looks heavily fortified, Ghost observed, scanning the bunker with his visor. Automated turrets, reinforced walls, and motion sensors all over the place. Typical Noan paranoia, Reyes grunted. They know we're coming. Doc, I need you to set up a perimeter here, Kincaid instructed. We're going to need a fallback point if things go south. Park, you're with her. Reyes, Ghost, you're with me. We're going to get a closer look. Doc and Park nodded and began setting up defensive positions, while Kincaid led Reyes and Ghost along the ridge, searching for a way across the ravine. They moved with the silence of predators, blending into the shadows. Ghost quickly found what they were looking for, a series of natural rock formations that formed a precarious bridge across the chasm. It was narrow and looked like it could collapse at any moment, but it was their best option. After you, Reyes said with a smirk. Kincaid shot him a look before stepping onto the first rock. It wobbled slightly, but she maintained her balance and continued. The others followed, careful not to make any sudden movements. Below them, the ravine stretched into darkness, the bottom invisible in the black void. They reached the other side without incident and took cover behind a large boulder. The bunker was now directly in front of them, its defenses clearly visible. Ghost was already at work, hacking into the Noan security systems. Turrets offline, he whispered after a few minutes. I've also disabled their motion sensors, but it won't take them long to notice. Then we don't have much time, Kincaid said. Reyes, take point. We go in hard and fast. No mercy. Reyes nodded, his grip tightening on his weapon. The squad moved out from their cover, advancing on the bunker's entrance. Ghost had already opened the door, leaving it ajar for them. They slipped inside like shadows, the interior dimly lit by red emergency lights. The walls were lined with strange, pulsating tubes that seemed to be part of the bunker's life support system. The air was thick with the scent of chemicals and something else, something that made Kincaid's stomach turn. They encountered their first Noan sentry just around the corner. The reptilian warrior barely had time to react before Reyes silenced him with a quick burst of fire. The Noan crumpled to the ground, his body twitching as green blood pooled around him. No alarms, Kincaid whispered, her voice like ice. We keep this quiet. They continued their advance, moving deeper into the bunker. The sound of their footsteps was drowned out by the hum of machinery and the distant rumble of thunder from outside. They passed through several empty rooms, each one filled with strange alien technology that none of them recognized. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the heart of the bunker. Inside, a group of Noans was gathered around a central console, their attention focused on whatever they were doing. There were 6 of them, heavily armed and armored, their scaly skin glinting in the red light. Kincaid signaled for her team to spread out and take positions around the room. They moved silently, setting up a perfect crossfire. Then, with a nod from Kincaid, they opened fire. The room erupted into chaos as the Noans scrambled to return fire, but they were outmatched and outgunned. One by one, they fell under the relentless assault of the echoes. The last Noan tried to make a run for it, but Park put him down with a single shot to the back of the head. Clear, Reyes said, scanning the room. Kincaid approached the central console, examining the data displayed on the screen. It was a map of the surrounding area, with several red dots indicating Noan patrols and supply caches. But what caught her attention was a set of coordinates in the upper corner, far from their current location. Looks like they were planning to move, Kincaid said, pointing to the coordinates. This isn't their main base, just a forward outpost. Then where's the real base? Reyes asked. Somewhere deeper in the jungle, Kincaid replied. We're not done yet. The Echoes spent the next several hours navigating the treacherous terrain of Xenos 9, following the coordinates they had extracted from the bunker. The deeper they went into the jungle, the more oppressive the environment became. The trees grew taller and denser, their twisted branches forming a nearly impenetrable canopy overhead. The ground was a quagmire of mud and decaying vegetation, slowing their progress. But the squad pushed on, driven by their determination to complete the mission. They had faced worse odds before, and they would not let a group of known criminals get the better of them. As they approached the coordinates, the jungle began to change. The trees here were larger, their trunks gnarled and covered in thick moss. The air was filled with a strange, almost metallic scent, and the ground was littered with the bones of long-dead creatures. It was as if they had stepped into another world, a place where the very environment was hostile to life. "Keep your eyes peeled," Kincaid warned. "We're close." They soon found themselves standing before a massive structure, half buried in the ground and covered in vines. It was an ancient Noan temple, long abandoned and forgotten, but now repurposed as the criminals' base of operations. "This must be it," Ghost said, his voice barely audible. "I'm picking up multiple heat signatures inside." "How many?" Reyes asked. "Too many," Ghost replied grimly. "They've fortified this place well." "We'll have to draw them out," Kincaid said, formulating a plan on the spot. "Park, take up a sniper position on that ridge. Doc, you're on standby. Reyes, Ghost, you're with me. We're going in hot." The squad moved into position, each member taking up their assigned role. Park found a vantage point on a nearby ridge, her sniper rifle trained on the entrance to the temple. Doc set up a makeshift field station, ready to provide medical support if needed. Kincaid, Reyes, and Ghost approached the entrance cautiously. The massive stone doors were partially open, revealing a dark corridor leading into the depths of the temple. The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. "On my mark," Kincaid whispered, her hand hovering over the trigger of her weapon. 3, 2, 1, go." They burst through the doors, weapons blazing. The Noans inside were caught off guard, scrambling to return fire as the echoes cut through them with ruthless efficiency. The narrow corridor quickly became a killing zone, the walls splattered with green blood. But the Noans were not easily defeated. Reinforcements poured in from deeper within the temple, and soon the echoes found themselves outnumbered and outgunned. The firefight intensified, the sound of gunfire echoing through the ancient halls. "We're getting pinned down!" Reyes shouted, ducking behind a fallen pillar as bullets and plasma bolts flew overhead. "Ghost, we need a distraction," Kincaid ordered, her voice tense but controlled. "On it," Ghost replied, quickly hacking into the temple's power systems. A moment later, the lights flickered and died, plunging the temple into darkness. The Noans hesitated, their vision adapted to the dim light, but not to complete darkness. It was the opening the echoes needed. "Now!" Kincaid shouted, activating her night vision. The squad moved like ghosts in the dark, taking out the disoriented Noans with deadly precision. One by one their enemies fell, until only a handful remained. But the Noan leader, a massive warrior clad in heavy armor, refused to go down without a fight. He charged at Kincaid with a roar, swinging a massive energy blade that crackled with deadly power. Kincaid barely managed to dodge the first strike, the blade slicing through the air where she had been standing moments before. She countered with a quick burst of fire, but the Noan's armor absorbed the shots. "Steele, flank him!" Kincaid ordered, keeping the Noan leader distracted. Reyes moved quickly, circling around the Noan and firing at his unprotected back. The shots found their mark, the armor cracking under the assault. The Noan roared in pain and fury, swinging wildly as he tried to fend off both attackers. But he was too slow. Kincaid saw an opening and took it, firing a single shot that pierced the Noan's helmet and struck him in the head. The massive warrior staggered, then collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. "Target down," Kincaid said, lowering her weapon. "Is everyone all right?" "All clear here," Ghost replied, his voice tinged with relief. "Same here," Reyes added, stepping over the fallen Noan. "Good work, everyone," Kincaid said, her voice calm but firm. "Let's secure the area and call in for extraction. This mission is over." As the squad moved to secure the temple, Kincaid allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The mission had been tough, but they had succeeded where others might have failed. The Noan criminals were no more, and the message was clear: humanity would not be trifled with. But as she looked around at the ancient temple, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of threats both known and unknown, and the Echoes would be ready for whatever came next. The Echoes had completed their mission, but Xenos 9 had one final surprise in store for them. As they began their trek back to the extraction point, The jungle seemed to come alive with a renewed intensity. The air grew thicker, the shadows deeper, and the sounds of the jungle more menacing. "Something's not right," Doc said, her voice uneasy. "The jungle's changing." "Stay alert," Kincaid ordered, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "This planet is still trying to kill us." They moved in a tight formation, every sense on high alert. The ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, and the trees loomed larger and more menacing. Even the bioluminescent plants that had once provided light now seemed to cast ominous shadows. "Commander, I've got movement." Park's voice came over the comms, her tone tense. "A lot of it, coming from all directions." "Can you identify?" Kincaid asked, her heart rate quickening. "Negative," Park replied. It's like the jungle itself is moving." Kincaid didn't like the sound of that. "Everyone, weapons free. We might have a fight on our hands." As if in response, the jungle erupted with activity. The ground shook as massive roots burst from the earth, writhing like tentacles. The trees themselves seemed to bend and twist, their branches reaching out like claws, and from the shadows, creatures began to emerge, twisted, nightmarish forms that defied description. "They're everywhere," Reyes shouted, opening fire on the nearest creature. His bullets tore through the beast, but more took its place, surging forward with a feral hunger. The echoes fought back with everything they had, but the jungle seemed endless, its creatures relentless. The air was filled with the sounds of gunfire, the screams of the dying, and the roar of the jungle itself. "We need to fall back," Ghost shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "We can't hold them off forever." "Agreed," Kincaid said, her voice firm despite the desperation of the situation. "Everyone, fall back to the extraction point. We'll make our stand there." The squad began a fighting retreat, covering each other as they moved. The jungle seemed to press in on them from all sides, the creatures growing more numerous and more ferocious. But the echoes were not so easily defeated. They fought with the tenacity and skill that had earned them their reputation, refusing to give an inch. As they neared the extraction point, the trees began to thin, and the oppressive weight of the jungle lessened. But the creatures were still on their heels, driven by some primal urge to destroy. "Park, lay down covering fire," Kincaid ordered as they reached the clearing where their dropship was waiting. Park didn't need to be told twice. She took up a position on a rise and began picking off the creatures with deadly precision, her shots echoing through the jungle. The rest of the squad formed a defensive perimeter around the dropship, their weapons blazing. "Get on board!" Kincaid shouted as the dropship's engines roared to life. "We're getting out of here!" One by one, the squad members boarded the dropship, firing until the last possible moment. As soon as Kincaid was on board, the ramp closed, and the dropship lifted off, leaving the nightmarish jungle behind. The echoes watched from the windows as Xenos 9 receded into the distance, the twisted jungle once again becoming a dark green mass below. The creatures that had pursued them faded into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. That was too close. Reyes muttered, his voice filled with exhaustion. "Yeah," Ghost agreed, leaning back in his seat, sweat glistening on his brow. "I don't ever want to see this place again." Kincaid remained silent, her thoughts elsewhere. The mission had been a success, but it had come at a high cost. Xenos 9 was a reminder that there were forces in the galaxy that even humanity's best couldn't fully comprehend or control. But as long as there were threats to humanity, the echoes would continue to fight. They had survived the jungle, and they would survive whatever came next. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the mission, it was about survival, about proving that no matter how dangerous the galaxy became, humanity would endure. They would fight, they would adapt, and they would overcome. And when the galaxy pushed, humanity would push back. The echoes left Xenos 9 behind. But the jungle planet was far from done with them. As they traveled through the void of space, the memories of the mission lingered, haunting them like ghosts. The planet had tested them, pushed them to their limits, and in doing so, had left its mark on each of them. But they were the echoes, and they would carry on. Their next mission awaited, and they would face it with the same determination that had carried them through Xenos 9. They were humanity's finest, and they would not falter. Because in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the galaxy, There were few things more dangerous than a determined human squad with a score to settle. And the Echoes had a long list of scores to settle. The story of the Echoes and their battle on Xenos 9 would be told and retold among mercenaries and soldiers across the galaxy. It would become a legend, a tale of human tenacity and resilience. And as long as there were those who sought to threaten humanity, the Echoes would be there, a relentless force of retribution in the dark corners of the universe. For humanity would not be broken, and the Echoes would ensure that their enemies learned that lesson the hard way.